We came up with this unique solution. We call it a Cipher translation proxy. Essentially, you have applications, you want to be quantum ready. You isolate them on a segment behind one of our firewalls. They talk classic crypto to the firewall, and then in the proxy layer, we translate that to PQC. To the outside world, it's speaking PQCs. So customers accelerate their journey to quantum readiness.
You've likely heard of Pareto's principle or the 80-20 rule. Is there a way to get most of the way to crypto agility with minimal effort? Palo Alto Networks has certainly made its mark with firewalls and security detection and response offerings. We learn about how they can also provide a rapid head start to PQC migration, covering technical inventory to even creating wrappers for legacy app communications. And you won't believe what they're seeing in network traffic. PQC used to hide hacking attacks? It's a very practical take on getting your company ready for tomorrow in this episode of the Post-Quantum World. I'm your host, Konstantinos Karagiannis. I lead quantum computing services at Protiviti, where we're helping companies prepare for the benefits and threats of this exploding field. I hope you'll join each episode as we explore the technology and business impacts of this post-quantum era. Our guest today is the Senior Vice President, Product Management at Palo Alto Networks, Rich Campagna. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Konstantinos. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and for listeners who might not know, it's probably a very small number, but who don't know what Palo Alto does, could you just give us a little elevator pitch sort of the company and the product types?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're, as you know, and most of your viewers your listeners are aware, we're a cybersecurity company. So we started about 20 years ago, initiating or creating the category that to this day is still called next generation firewalls. So we're the primary business for the company for the first decade and a half was around network security. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we've expanded into a much broader set of cybersecurity products, focusing not only on firewalls and, of course, extending them from hardware firewalls into cloud and software firewalls. SASE, a platform built around automating security operations, things like XDR, SIM, a number of other things in the security operations realm and cloud security realm. So at this point, where maybe a lot of people know us as a firewall vendor, but a pretty broad focus on cybersecurity overall across our customer base.
Yeah, it's almost like the whole ecosystem of your products is designed to detect known and unknown threats, right? Pretty much that are facing one of your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And those unknown threats get very interesting, Konstantinos. I know we're here to talk more about quantum security, but just to give you some perspective, a year ago across our customer base, we were seeing about 2 million, seeing and stopping, of course, about 2 million unknown threats every single day. Just a small percentage of which today are related to quantum, though attackers are increasingly using post-quantum ciphers to tunnel attacks into organizations. So a year ago, about 2 million unique attacks every single day. And last year, that's grown to almost 9 million attacks on a given day. So these are unknown attacks, things we haven't seen before. So the attack and the attacker landscape gets more interesting and also more difficult by the day, it seems.
Yeah, and the next thing I was going to ask you was about this idea of how quantum threat is unknown 0 day for the first time. Like we know it's coming, we know we all have to be prepared for it. So it's unique. But you just said something that I think listeners are going to be like, wait, what did he just say? And I think they're going to want me to double click on that first.
Sure, yeah.
So you're saying that already there are attackers using post-quantum cryptography to obfuscate what they're doing in some kind of attack context?
Yeah, think of it like tunneling,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the core and what I'll broadly call network security, key to what you need to do to achieve outcomes related to stopping attacks is to inspect traffic. Attackers are smart. They understand that the vast majority of network security infrastructure, firewalls, VPNs, all these different things that we put in place to either protect networks or to identify attacks. Most of that infrastructure has not been upgraded to be able to decrypt and inspect what's inside of post-quantum ciphers. So, PQC in and of itself is not an attack, but a really smart way to get an attack into an organization is to encrypt it with PQCs, knowing that most of the network security infrastructure out there is not going to be decrypting and understanding what's inside of those packets. and stopping the attack that gets embedded inside of that encryption. So yeah, we're starting to see that it's not widespread, but certainly a pretty rapid rise of PQCs on customers' networks, some percentage of which is attacks being tunneled effectively.
That's pretty wild. It's almost like that whole thing about any sufficiently advanced technology will appear like magic.
Yep.
In this case, any sufficiently advanced cryptography will appear like an attack, probably, because I think it is right now.
Yeah, well, and I think enterprises, in particular are in a really interesting spot right now. I think the early thoughts for a lot of our customers were, "We're just gonna block PQCs." Now what's happening is, with browsers as an example, Chrome last year started to implement PQCs by default. A lot of the backend, internet-facing application traffic. So, for example, Cloudflare enables PQCs on a lot of the properties that they front end, which means that now, okay, you have anything behind Cloudflare and anything on a Chrome browser, both of these things defaulting to PQC. So maybe a year and a half ago, if you're seeing PQCs, especially before the NIST ratification, let's say, there was a good chance that it was some sort of, at the very least, suspicious, if not malicious traffic, and you could be comfortable just blocking it. Now we're starting to see, more and more of these assets on kind of both sides of the enterprise, applications and their users being upgraded to support PQC. So there's a lot more legitimate PQC traffic as well. And so that it gets a little bit more difficult to just say I'm just going to block PQCs and not allow this through my network, because there's a lot of legitimate traffic going through there as well.
So while some people are only thinking of the quantum timeline as a reason to hurry up, like this possibility that we'll be, caught unaware and all our traffic will be decrypted, there's an extra push here to migrate organizations to PQC. So that way we can be aware of what's going on at the perimeter, be aware of what's going on with the application layer, right?
Yeah, and even that, with regards to the enterprise timeline is, there's different aspects, right? One aspect is, what am I going to do in my, let's call it my security, specifically my network security, to understand what is flowing through my network. Another part of that timeline is so that almost independent of that is, what am I going to do with the rest of my organization, all my devices and applications on my devices, IoT types of assets, applications that I maybe have internally developed, SaaS applications. This entire IT project, really more so than an information security project, related to all of that stuff, that is the piece that has a really long timeline. So you have two pieces driving some urgency today. One, you're just seeing this stuff on the network. You need to identify it. You need to be able to inspect it like you do other traffic. And then two, you have a very long lead time. Like, let's take a typical enterprise. So I was talking to a big utility CISO and his staff of a very large utility just I think 2 weeks ago. And we started talking about that. We had this quantum discussion, and they said that, I forget the number, something like 3,700 applications that they have developed inside of their organization. And none of those applications support PQCs today, right? So even if there wasn't this kind of near term, there's PQC traffic happening on my network, I need to inspect it. It is going to take that organization an exceptionally long period of time to get those 3,700 applications. And that's not even counting SaaS apps, right? For the most part, I think the major SaaS vendors, the Microsofts, the Googles of the world, all these, Salesforce, Slack, all these either support PQCs today or will be upgraded. The big, challenge that needs to drive some urgency in the enterprise is these internally developed applications. You get stuff that, people haven't touched the code in years, right? And those need to be migrated. So there's kind of these two things that are driving some urgency and really a broadening of the discussions that I'm having. A year and a half ago, my discussions related to quantum were with two verticals: financial services and government. Right now, it's much more broad, because people are getting the sense that even though there's some uncertainty on the timeline, I need to take some action now in my network, but then also in my applications.
So you mentioned Microsoft. They announced recently that their core services, their core Windows services, will be PQC by 2029, and then everything else to follow by like 2033, 2032, somewhere in there. If I'm talking to a customer and we're trying to help them begin their journey, one of the questions that comes up is about third party and reliance on tools and services and everything. You have to end up asking third parties, what are your plans for migration?
Sure.
So you're part of a huge company that many companies rely on for a huge chunk of their network security, right? So if I were to ask you that question, like, okay, hello, Palo Alto, you want to help us? We're Corporation XYZ. What's your plan for getting us to PQC? How are you going to implement it in all of your environment, and by when?
So there's two aspects to our plan.
Hmm.
We actually just recently announced and as of a couple of weeks ago have started shipping in the software of our products, what we call PanOS, which is our operating system that extends across our entire network security portfolio. So all different types of firewalls, whether it's hardware, software, cloud firewall, our SASE solution. And we've been hard at work to do two things. One, the obvious thing for someone like us is to upgrade all of our services to be PQC enabled. And then two, because of our unique vantage point in the network and the fact that we're inspecting traffic for our customers, there's a lot that we can see that will really help customers understand where they are, the progress they're making with regards to quantum readiness. And there's a number of interesting new features we also just released that are really related to accelerating the long pole that I just talked about, which is those internally developed applications, right? We took a hard look at this and said, what can we do? We can provide some visibility, but visibility only goes you so far. But then the network security team needs to go meet with the IT team and say, hey, these X hundred applications are not yet quantum ready, and push them. And that's a difficult discussion. So one of the other interesting things is that we now developed and released to our customers is this ability to basically isolate and then effectively upgrade any legacy application to be post-quantum ready instantaneously, which is an interesting set of features. So those are kind of the two pieces. One, upgrading our own stuff, so that the customer's ready, and then two, upgrading the back end applications themselves and providing this visibility into the quantum readiness journey for the organization.
So your timeline for your own stuff would be like, do you have a rough date for that?
Yeah, we're there. I mean, we announced the stuff. We released version 12.1. Not that
That's
you want
that's
that
what I mean. Like
specific.
you update, you're in. You're like gold if you update.
Yeah, so the majority of our customer base is running, some software or cloud-based version of our systems, right? And
Mhm.
so those are simple software upgrades to this new version of our PanOS network security operating system. In the case of hardware, most of our installed base is running hardware which is able to support that new software and support PQCs. We launched some new hardware as well at the same time as this release that has some capabilities for accelerating PQC decryption, which it's obviously much more resource intensive than traditional crypto. And then as well, there's some onboard things on the hardware itself for doing things like quantum random number generation, so you have more random sorts of entropy. But regardless, the vast majority of our customer base, whether it's hardware or software or cloud, simple upgrade to this new version of the software. And then, obviously they need to enable these things. And, what a great way to make a lot of progress very quickly on your quantum journey is to upgrade things like VPNs to PQCs, right? So, across these network security systems, we've upgraded, things like access to our management interfaces, connections into our cloud services. A lot of these things most of those are done. There's more coming in the near future here. VPN, site to site, and remote access VPNs. That's another key area. I mean, a lot of our employee access to internal applications, like the ones that are least likely to be updated to support PQCs in the near term. If you tunnel all of that inside of a ZTNA connection or a VPN connection, whether it's site to site or remote access, now sure, maybe the application itself is talking classic crypto, but you have PQC on the tunnel, which is enveloping that entire thing. So what we've done is gone through all the different kind of services we make available on our products, and start upgrading all of that to support PQCs by these software upgrades. And in the hardware, of course, we're doing more to do PQC acceleration to make sure we can maintain the right levels of performance for our customers. So that's job number one for us, and probably most expected thing out of a vendor like us is, are your own services PQC ready? And so we've spent the last probably 2.5 years, a fair amount of focus on our development organization on making sure that we upgrade all that stuff, supports all the latest NIST algorithms, and all built with crypto agility in mind, which I'm sure is a topic you've discussed on this podcast at various different times in the past.
Oh yeah.
If these algorithms don't pan out, what are you going to have to do to move? It's all built for just simple software upgrades and reconfigurations to support those kinds of changes that may come over time. So that's kind of like area number one: upgrade Palo Alto network security, primarily firewalls and SASEs, to support PQCs so that anything the customer is using is quantum ready from a network security standpoint.
And on the topic of crypto agility, are you already working on a version of PenOS like in the lab for HQC, which is going to be draft standard next year and the year after that, the code-based finalist? Yep.
Not yet, but we will, as that evolves, we will definitely start taking a look at those things. Our objective, whether it's related to quantum or just more broadly, is to get out ahead of the customer need,
Mhm.
right? The customer demand. So, but if you start too early, then sometimes things change too much, and you end up shipping software that doesn't necessarily meet the needs. So, we track all this stuff. We are highly involved with the quantum community as a whole. We're heavily involved with NIST and CISA, heavily involved with other organizations that are developing products in the quantum space. So, part of our value prop as a vendor is to stay apprised of what's happening out there in the market and deliver products when the customer needs them. But not too soon. And honestly, that's maybe less relates to products. But over the last 6 months, we're taking a really hard look at when is the right time to go and bring this message to the market, because if you do it too soon, it falls on deaf ears, and it's just a few of the top five
Tell me
banks,
about
and
it.
then a bunch of. So
Yeah.
so now we think, okay, there's some urgency here. People need to start moving, and so that's why we're having this discussion today.
Yeah, I gave my first major talk about PQC in 2012.
Yeah. Okay. So
So,
you've been hanging on for a while.
yeah, yeah. So there have been some deaf ears. I've definitely encountered those over the years. So on topic also of the algorithms, do you use hybrid at all for like the VPN solution? So is it like wrapped? Is it like a lower level of MLChem so you can have room for a hybrid solution? Like how's that work right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a full set of, let's call it, flexibility in terms of configuration that you can implement across any of the services, but VPN in particular obviously is a big one. So
Mhm.
all of that it's built for full flexibility. We talk to a lot of the most stringent customer government types of customers. They're all our customers, obviously. The largest banks in the world, and they have all kinds of requirements and thoughts right now in terms of how they're going to do this and how they roll this out. So we have built this all for full flexibility in terms of configuration. Multiple key exchanges are supported. You can mix classic with keys with PQCs, a number of different things, all built into the products already.
Yeah, I figured. I don't think your customers want an easy button always. I think they want to be able to go in and actually, toggle a few things.
Well, a lot of our customers want the easy button, so we have to design for the easy button, but you also need the full,
Yeah.
the flexibility. And at some point, I think it will become obvious of what are the best practices. Like, part of what we always try to build into our products, you work with your first several hundred customers on how exactly they want to use it, and then what emerges is these are the best practices for the other 70,000, 75,000 of customers that we have out there. How can we make it super easy for them so that they don't have to think about or know, you know certainly not what a qubit is or superposition or quantum entanglement, but definitely as little as possible, because people don't understand crypto to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think this is part of the challenge in educating people on this quantum journey, is that if you go in and you start talking about qubits and Shor's algorithm and all these other things, it can be maybe not overwhelming for your audience, but for the broader kind of information, people don't even understand the basics of public key cryptography and why a quantum computer will be able to break that public key cryptography that we have today. So part of, I think, what we as a community collectively have to bring is that easy button for folks, both in terms of understanding what they need to do and then implementing, of course, as well.
Yeah, yeah. People are like, how do you have a couple hundred people ready to help a customer migrate to post-quantum cryptography? It's like, it's simple because there's nothing quantum about post-quantum cryptography.
Well, no,
You
that's
know?
the
Yeah.
great, and you know what, Konstantinos, like, I don't know how old you are. I won't even take a guess, but I've been doing this for 25 years, and we have done this exact same thing probably 5 times. When I started
Of
my
course.
career, we were using like 56 and 128-bit RSA, right? Now we're using 2048 and 40. These are all crypto migrations that have
Yeah.
happened. People have already done this. They've done this on these applications as classic computers have gotten more powerful. It's the same thing, but I think, part of what we're all getting wrong here is that it's like it's all new acronyms and new terminology, and quantum sounds scary to people, and so that's why they make it to them it feels like more than just another crypto migration that we've already done, right?
Yeah, well put. I mean, quantum is the threat here now, the imminent threat, but it is a crypto migration.
Yeah.
Just as much as it would have been if there was some kind of like backdoor attack or, whatever else was
Yeah,
possible.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you had mentioned earlier helping companies that have code that's not going to be easy to migrate.
Yep.
Is that because they hard coded the cryptography in instead of like having libraries that can easily
I think it's just large organizations, Konstantinos, have an astounding number of internally developed applications.
be? Hmm.
It's not for me to debate, how many of those are mission critical and how many are not, but it's crazy how often I hear we have X thousand internally developed applications. Obviously I'm talking about large, very large, Fortune 500 types of companies, but it's not that because things are hard coded, it's that those a lot of those applications they're still critical, they're old, they haven't been touched in a decade. Somebody needs them for their job, some core part of the business, and nobody knows the code base, right? They just haven't been touched in forever, and that's the problem. I don't think you can point to one particular thing about the way those applications are written. It's just that who's going to do it? Take me to any CIO on the planet and say, you know, I say to them, hey, you have 3 years to upgrade 3,000 internally developed applications. What is it's intractable for most. That's the problem. It's a major project. Is the problem.
So what do you offer? Like what do you do to help them?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is just providing some visibility. So in our products are all in the network.
Hmm.
They're in between, two applications that are communicating, or user and application, IoT device to some backend service. That's where we are. We have this unique vantage point in our customers' networks. So the first thing that we decided to bring to market was set of visibility and readiness tools to help the organization understand, first of all, like a crypto inventory, right? Where are we using post quantum ciphers? Where are we not? Right. And so we see not only the traffic that's going through, we see the TLS negotiations. We know what's being offered by either side of the transaction. So we can get a pretty fair amount of the way, not 100% just by network level visibility. We're working on extending the sources we pull into this, but we can get a pretty good understanding for the customer of across like your users and your devices, your network infrastructure, and then your backend applications, what's already there,
Hmm.
right? That's kind of piece number one is building this understanding of what crypto is being used where. And by the way, Constantinos, as we brought this to market, one of the more interesting things that I didn't anticipate that we've seen a lot of customers using crypto that is already unsafe, right? And so that's been a big, eye opener. Forget quantum. That's just already, dated algorithms that should not be used on an existing customer's network, being used as well. So that's been a big eye opener for some of our customers as well. But that starting point is where are we with regards to say, user device, network infrastructure, and application? Where are we on our quantum journey? And then customers take this and use this as, let's call it a burn down list, right? These SaaS applications are ready to go. These ones we have to maybe go work with the vendor. These internally developed applications we need to work on. So we take this to the IT team, our peers under perhaps under the CIO, and use that as sort of a communication mechanism and a tracking mechanism, right? How far are we along this journey? So that's the starting point number one, because otherwise a customer will have to accomplish this. There's a number of startups and other kind of new companies out there that are focused on crypto inventory just as an end product. Challenge is that all needs to be deployed, right? Our customers have our firewalls or SASE nodes already deployed in their networks. We see this traffic. Let's just turn it on and provide them that visibility, right? Where are you on your quantum journey is the question we're answering. And then what are the next level down in the workflows there in that part of our product is what are the specific things that need to be taken to be addressed. So that's kind of starting point number one, assessment of where things are and how you're progressing over time, so that you can work, whether you decide this is a 2-year project for you or a 5-year project, or customers have different views on how quickly they think they need to move here based on their interpretation of expert predictions on when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer is going to make its way into the market. Some want to move with more urgency, some want to move with less. Regardless, we can show them how they're progressing over time and what specifically they need to take action on. So that's piece number one. And then the second area is, we've talked a number of times already in this discussion on these legacy applications that just aren't that from a practical standpoint, a lot of them will just never get upgraded, right? They're already well past their life. Nobody knows the code, as I talked about. They're not going to upgrade them regardless of how much external pressure there is, because it's too insurmountable of a task. So we came up with this unique solution, once again, built onto these existing network security products that our customers already have deployed in their networks. So there's no new products they have to go out and budget for or buy for. Here, and this isn't maybe not the best name, but we call it a Cipher translation proxy. So essentially what this is, you have some set of applications that either it's 4 years, 5 years out before you upgrade them and you want to be quantum ready today, or you're just never going to upgrade them. The idea is you isolate them on a segment behind one of our firewalls. They talk classic crypto to the firewall, and then in the proxy layer in the firewall, we translate that to PQC on the outside. So you have an isolated segment to protect and allow nothing else into it other than these pre-quantum applications. But to the outside world, all your users, potential bad actors, some hacker that somehow get their hands on a tens of millions of dollars a quantum computer, to the rest of the world, it's speaking PQCs outside of that firewall. So that's a way that we came up with to help our customers accelerate their journey to quantum readiness, and a very practical and immediately actionable way to do that too, by the way.
Yeah, it's terrific. You're literally creating like a wrapper gateway or something, right? Like, yeah,
That's exactly it.
a
Yeah,
PQC
exactly it.
wrapper
So
gateway. That's awesome.
they can continue as long as they want, as long as they keep that segment isolated and protected.
So
To
no
the
one's
rest of the world,
listening
it's
to the
PQC already,
packets.
right?
Yeah.
Immediately. So
Yeah, you definitely have to protect against local network or adjacent network attack there for
sure,
sure.
but it really
Reduces your
dramatically
footprint.
decreases your attack surface,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Now, again, there's no other, you don't allow any other traffic on there. It's fully isolated. Yes, then you have to still, of course, protect the local network. But for most organizations should be able to accomplish that, and it gets them on that. But it's still, it's still best practice, obviously, to upgrade the application to support PQCs.
Mhm.
No question about it. That's the best possible outcome. I upgraded my application to support PQCs. I'm using a quantum, safe source of entropy to generate quantum safe keys, and the whole thing is fully protected. But there's always like the ideal versus the practical reality that
Yeah,
organizations need to balance.
you're speeding things along this way. So you mentioned earlier about there's nothing to install. You're already there. Yeah, I can speak from experience that customers do not like to install endpoint listeners and servers. They don't want to do that for some kind of assessment or anything. So because all this stuff is already there, if I'm hearing correctly, it sounds like you want to expand the information that you can gather so you can get more complete inventories. And then are you also looking then at a dashboard that tracks how well you're doing over time? Like some kind of...
That second piece is already there.
Okay.
Right. So, you get this kind of initial view and starting point. We categorize it by your devices, traditional IT assets, IoT assets, applications, and network infrastructure. Wherever we can, very actionable recommendations with automation. So like, for example, there's a firewall that's running one of our firewalls and it's running a prior version of the code that doesn't support PQCs. We're going to prompt that user to upgrade to the latest version, and wherever possible, we build automation into, or at the very least, very like practical recommendations on how we're going to upgrade it. And then of course we're tracking that progress over time. In that case, in the network infrastructure, providing some good targeted recommendations on which applications, if it's a SaaS app, the recommendation is you need to go talk to the vendor because they don't support PQCs today. Your internal apps, we give them those. So a lot of that actionable guidance is there, in addition to tracking the progress over time. So that's there already. Then in terms of expansion and pulling in more data sources, probably I'm not going to speak too openly about roadmap, but what we want to do is solve this for the entirety of the enterprise. And our vantage point in the network, while it provides a lot of information with regards to what is happening inside of the organization, it's not complete. It does have some other pieces the organization needs to go and track down. So we'll look to expanding that over time.
Yeah, that sounds like a promising start. We have all these panes of glass in networks, right? And it'd be good to be able to just very easily flip to a tab and see where we are in a PQC journey. We being whatever company is doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we've tried to implement here at Palo Alto.
And I have a question. It's not really PQC related, but so this whole vibe coding thing that's becoming all the rage, I suspect it's just going to lead to an awful lot of insecure code, like a
Yeah.
lot of. So, are you already seeing? Do you have any visibility to see like these like numerous apps just appearing out of nowhere that are new but hopelessly flawed? Is anything like that generating noise yet? I was curious if you could see that on a mass level.
There is obviously that's obviously that's I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, Konstantinos. This is the longest I've gotten into a conversation, probably in the last year and a half, before somebody asked me about AI. So I thought we would be clear of it the whole time, but
It's just because you guys have such visibility to what's
it's
flying
big enough.
around on the
Yeah, I
network,
mean, just like we provide this visibility into the PQCs, we are it started really small, probably a year and a half ago when we first launched what we call AI access security, which is that there's two solutions we have for AI security in the network. One is AI access security is about providing visibility and control over what the third party AI enabled services that your employees are using. And then Prisma Airs, we just closed the acquisition of a company called Protect AI, is about protecting the organization's own AI applications that they build and then make available to their either to their customers, employees, or whoever the user is. In that AI access security, the control over access to third party applications, there are now we grew from like a couple hundred to I think we're nearing 5,000 now unique AI applications that we provide visibility into. Obviously, for those third party applications, we're not seeing the code; just we're just seeing the transactions and the interactions with the backend, but we are scoring all of those things and looking for obviously things like sensitive data in a prompt that goes from an employee to a third party service. But equally important is because all these applications are brand new in the last couple of years by definition, we're trying to understand and providing protection for, hey, maybe I send a prompt, maybe some code optimization tool, right? I send a prompt and it writes some code for me or optimizes some code and sends me back a response. Well, it's obviously very important that we understand if there's some kind of malicious script or malicious URL or something along those lines in that code. So there's more and more of that, more in the long tail of applications as opposed to some of the early stuff, or excuse me, the more widespread things that we see out there. But even in the widespread, I won't use any specific names of AI powered applications. Even the basic stuff like prompt injection, topic guardrails, these types of things, are fairly easy for our research teams and our models to break. So it's like anything else. There's a whole bunch of just like the new algorithms for PQCs, right? Everyone's fairly confident that they're going to work, but we've seen in the last several years that some that we're fairly confident about don't actually end up panning out. And so that's why we have this need for crypto agility. Same thing here. You have a whole bunch of new infrastructure. Obviously, the crown jewel of that infrastructure is the LLM, but there's new uses of data. Agents bring a whole new set of a set of concerns in, and when all that new stuff comes in, and it's combined with this much more time pressure in AI than in quantum, because in most organizations you have the CEO or some high-ranking execs saying, "Hey, this is an opportunity for us to increase our top line revenue or improve our profitability. So you need to move fast." So you have fast with new tech. It's going to lead to a lot of weaknesses and hopefully fewer compromises, but they're there.
Yeah, the weakness is, and I wasn't even really referring to AI apps. I was referring to just any kind of apps that people are quickly writing using AI and
Okay,
then
yeah,
just
yeah,
throwing on the network, right? Like
yeah,
these vibe coded apps, it worries me. I feel like like we're going to
sure,
try and
yeah.
button things up with PQC and then 400 apps are going to come online a month in every organization that just don't do anything right. And all of a
Okay, well,
sudden,
yeah, sorry, I guess
yeah,
I
yeah.
started
No,
going
no,
down
I
a
mean
path
that other
with
stuff of course is interesting too. I was just wondering if you're
yeah.
seeing like all these just
I
garbage
don't
apps
know that
appearing.
we don't have any particular data on that. Probably an interesting topic for our researchers, to look at whether we're seeing that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it's starting to happen. I think the question is in the large enterprise, are they building the right controls, the right security testing into their software development practices? Some are, and some, of course, as you know, are not. So I think time will tell what happens there.
Yeah, so I guess my call to action to listeners for that is if you do vibe coding, add 2 words at the end. Use PQC, and that's it. Just add that to your end of your prompt to keep it going along. So it sounds like there's more surprises coming from you guys that you're not ready to talk about yet, but I'll be excited to keep an eye out for that and see how that grows.
Well, listen, if we were done developing, me and my team wouldn't have a job anymore.
Yeah,
So
true, true.
no product is ever complete. And, as fast as we move, the business landscape continues to move.
Mhm.
And then the attack landscape, of course, they're equally motivated to continue to evolve. So all three of us, the business, the attackers, and the cybersecurity vendors like us need to continue to evolve and adapt.
So I'm going to put links in the show notes, of course, to your company, which it shouldn't be too difficult for people to find. But PanOS 12.1 is out now, right? And it's
Absolutely.
PQC enabled. So
Yeah.
some companies might not realize how easy a huge chunk of their infrastructure is to just migrate by doing something as simple as that, right?
Yep.
So that's terrific. I love to get these really actionable, practical things that the companies can start doing immediately. So thanks for sharing all that with us.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This was fun.
That does it for this episode. Thanks to Rich Campagna for joining to discuss Palo Alto Networks. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to Protivity's The Post-Quantum World and maybe leave a review to help others find us. Be sure to follow me on all socials at Constant Hacker. That's Constant with a K, Hacker. You'll find links there to what we're doing in quantum computing services at Protivity. You can also DM me questions or suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the show. For more information on our quantum services, check out Protivity.com or follow Protivity Tech on X and LinkedIn. Until next time, be kind and stay quantum curious.